Do you suffer from debilitating migraines? You know, that throbbing pain in the front or side of your head that's so severe you're unable to work or do anything other than retreat into a dark and quiet room? Have you had them for years and just haven't found a solution? Call Dr. Elizabeth Ebersol and put an end to your debilitating migraines forever. Or go to her website at www.handmadehealth.com. That's www.handmadehealth.com.
Hello, everybody. Balls to the Wall, episode number 52. I'm co-host here, Kenny Matthews, and I'd like to bring in my buddy, co-host Billy Martin Jr. How the heck are you doing, buddy?
Howdy, Kenny. I'm good, man.
Good.
Outstanding.
Digging the hat. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. I know it was kind of bittersweet a little bit for you, but I hope that you and your family had a safe one and got to see the kids and all and eat and drink way too much.
Absolutely. Did all of the above. The hat is a birthday present from my kids. My birthday was on the 17th.
Well,
I turned 20.
excellent. I did not know that your birthday was on the 17th, but I should have known that. I will mark that in my calendar now. So I will definitely we need to go get your birthday pop somewhere for sure.
Please, next year when I turn 30, you can send me something.
Well, we sure do appreciate you guys listening to us. And you can follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is balls, capital B, the number 2, the THE, capital WALL, capital PC. That is our Twitter handle. We appreciate if you go subscribe to us, like us on there. Also look us on our Rumble, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, especially on YouTube. Please subscribe on YouTube. That would help us out a bunch. Put a like or dislike. Either way, it helps us out. It doesn't matter. And we love your suggestions on anything on the show. We'll keep it short and we'll keep it brief. But hey, I did want to talk to you a little bit about kind of what shook out a little bit over the weekend in the college football. Obviously we knew that Ohio State, Michigan kind of was going to be maybe an elimination game for the Final Four. I mean, there's still an outside shot that Ohio State could get in, but we figured that whoever was going to win that game pretty much assured themselves into the Final Four. Obviously Georgia beating Georgia Tech. Now, I would assume that even if Georgia Tech were to lose to Alabama on Saturday, they probably would still get in since they've been basically the number one team for most of the year. Obviously, two-time defending champs. I think they've got a 30-some game winning streak now. So I'm pretty sure that they would probably get in. But the team that's kind of that holds their destination, if Washington beats Oregon, they're in for sure. And I think the only other question mark, Billy, would be is that even if Florida State does win over Louisville this weekend, will they get in since they lost their quarterback 2 weeks ago? I think that that's going to be something that I think that the committee will probably try to evaluate, because, that's a tough call. I think they should get in. Anytime you go 13-0, it should be the body of work, not just the last 2 games counting, heavily. But I do feel like if Florida State does kind of get in, maybe you might disagree or agree with me. They're probably going to get rolled by, the number 1 ranked team at that point in time, because they don't have their quarterback. And we know that TV ratings, is huge, in the sporting world. So, and especially I believe it's on a New Year's Eve this year, which normally those numbers don't do well on New Year's Eve anyway, because, everybody wanting to go out and all those kind of things. I think it's something that the committee does have to balance. If it was me, though, I would still put them in. I think it's really intriguing that, you got a 1-loss Ohio State, you got a 1-loss Alabama, you got a 1-loss University of Texas, you got a 1-loss Oregon, all nipping where they all have a legitimate shot at getting in because, let's be honest here. Is Washington going to beat Oregon? They only beat them. They beat them earlier by 3, and I thought Oregon pretty much almost gave that game away earlier in the year. So, you could have another 1-loss team, in that loop. I think the committee's got a couple of tough choices there. I really do.
I agree totally. To me, Georgia and Michigan are easy. Obviously, the way Michigan handled Ohio State.
Yeah.
raise them up even more in my book. Losing your quarterback and still winning,
Yeah.
tells me your team's even that much better.
Yeah.
So I would have a hard time on that committee not picking them there, but I could see your point on the role factor, but it's a team sports. Although we're talking about the most important position on the field, so that's a tough one. I watched Texas destroy my Red Raiders over the weekend, and damn, they're legit too. It really should be more than 4. It really
This
why
is the
can't
year
they do
would
a
have been
Sweet
perfect.
16?
But let me ask you this, Billy. This is to bounce your argument here a little bit. If it was this time next year and we had the 12 teams, do you think a lot of these games this weekend really mean much? I mean, maybe it's just for seeding or somebody, playing on the road or getting a bye. It does take a little bit away from the Washington-Oregon matchup this weekend because both teams would be in the playoffs.
Yeah. Good point.
The Bama, Georgia, whoever, I mean, it didn't matter. They both would be in the playoffs. So, I mean, I'm a proponent of the 12, but I do understand that argument from the other side that says it does lessen the regular season. And I was wanting to know going forward, will these big Power 5 teams keep playing these championship games?
It's funny. Maybe if you look at the rankings right now, maybe it's just the grade 8 that you select because look at the grade 8. Those are the 11-1 teams and up. That gets
what Penn State's on the outside looking in. I think is what I saw. I think that's
and Missouri, Mississippi, and your Sooners.
I mean, if you didn't have any championship games this weekend and was just 8, your Alabama would play Georgia in the first round.
That'd be great.
That wouldn't be too bad of a matchup, would it?
No, it would not.
Man.
No, it would not.
I mean, so we will have that next year, and that that is going to be great there. I think that Bama is very fortunate to be in this spot. Obviously, 4th and 31. You don't normally see that get completed for a touchdown, nonetheless. But I do think that does Friday night, that Washington-Oregon game. I mean, that's set up to be a barn burner now. And, I know a lot of people may not have seen Oregon and Washington a whole lot this year because they are on the West Coast. But, man, that game's going to be really, really entertaining. I think the first one, the 53 wins. In that game, but it is intriguing a little bit, and it does. And as I said earlier, to me, what Kirby Smart's done in University of Georgia, I mean, to go that many games and winning streak in the SEC, the granddaddy of them all, to not have an ugly game where you get tripped up at least once, man, that's a major kudos to him. The new factory just moved from Tuscaloosa down to Athens, and we do need to have somebody else maybe win this year. It would be nice. And Michigan, as great as they've been the last 2 years, it's time for them to win a playoff game.
Under all the controversy,
yes,
yeah,
they got smoked 2 years ago. They didn't show up for the first half against TCU last year, and they had to have a rat race to try to make that competitive late. It's time for them to win a game there. But yes, I think there's a legitimate case this year where 3 or 4 teams can say, "Hey, I should have been in the Final Four," and they will not be in the Final Four this year. So it should be interesting.
No, you're absolutely right. Hey, and here, kudos to your Sooners and the Longhorns getting their programs ready for the SEC. I mean, look at them, 11-1 and 10-2. I mean, that's a lot of pressure, and they've damn sure been stepping up. And look out, SEC.
Well, and I think that the SEC is just it depends on how they're going to schedule these quadrants or whatever they're going to do with that. It hasn't been finalized yet. But if you're the SEC, you got to be thinking, man, you just really just dial it up a notch, bringing both of those programs in on the football side of there. I mean, there truly is only one dog, and that's Vanderbilt. That's in that in football wise. If your weakest teams are like Kentucky, or if it's been Missouri or South Carolina, I mean, that's your weakest teams. That's pretty good, dude. And now you're going to bring in the state of Texas and Oklahoma into the recruiting grounds for the Deep South. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I think that eventually this will all go to just Power Five, the 5 conferences, and then you'll maybe just have the rest maybe play in a separate championship game. I think down the road, I think that's where it's heading. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I hope you're wrong a little bit, but yeah, I sadly concur.
Well, and one of the reasons why I think that so much is that the young guy is not going to be able to develop his players with the NIL the way it is, where they're going to stay around 2 or 3 years for development. So for Tulane, have a young quarterback that everybody overlooked, Ohio State may come in and say, hey, we're going to give you X amount. And Tulane says, we can't compete with that. So it's just, I feel bad for the little guy, but I thought if you put them all in the same kind of pecking order of NIL and all that, you might have something kind of like the FCA, the FC, division of playoffs, it's not great. Don't get me wrong. It's not ideal, but at least maybe gives you something to maybe play for, because right now I think you're only going to ever get is about one team in there. And in some years, I mean, look at it now. You wouldn't have anybody from a non-Power 5 in the top in the 12-team playoff this year. So, yeah, I like to see where it's heading, but anyhow, I just thought it was kind of interesting to note that we had really a lot of true blue bloods. Then there's going to be 3 or 4 of them that are not going to get into the playoff this year, and some fan base is going to be upset. Some of them justifiably so. It's crazy.
It's going to be fun watching. That's for damn sure.
Yes, I can't wait. Well, I wanted to spend a little bit more time on our second topic here today, our final topic. And I asked Billy this weekend, I said, why don't we talk about our 3 favorite NFL players that, they can be in any era, whatever we wanted to be, just 3 of our favorite players. And I thought we would get a broad mixture out of this. And Billy's told me his 3. I haven't told him my 3 yet, but I will let you know that it's all 3 completely different from what you had. So this makes it even better. So we'll have 6 players that we can kind of talk about. But I wanted to briefly maybe say, Billy, who almost made your list? I thought that was just as important as your 3 guy list.
Well, since it's our show, I kind of cheat on that stuff. You notice I've never kept it within the limits like you've asked me to, because okay, let's say Fran Tarkington, for example. Mm-hmm. I was born in Minnesota. All right. I was cheering for the Vikings and jumping up and down when they won the Hail Mary game, right? Because we won, and then Drew pushes off and makes that great play. And I used to play street football with his son, with Fran Tarkington's son, and damn, he was good for a 5'10" little guy that just had a big pair, and I loved him. But moved to Texas. Took me a while to become a Cowboy fan. That's a story for another show. And watch. Not only did I watch Aikman from his, well, we'll go over that in a minute. But Tarkington would be one of those guys that just about made my list. Yes. Walt Garrison, my all-time favorite fullback, just because
rest in peace,
because of Copenhagen as a kid, and because he was so damn tough.
Yes.
Played a playoff game with a broken ankle. I mean, I loved his grit. I loved that he rode bulls.
Those commercials.
That's another
great.
one.
Those commercials. Yeah. So great. Wasn't he in some of the Miller Lite commercials with your dad? I can't remember. I
don't think so.
I could be mistaken. Maybe he might have just.
I don't think he was.
Okay.
Like wide receiver, a guy that didn't make my list, but God, I loved him as a kid, was Billy White Shoes Johnson. I mean,
Yes.
Not only did he have a great name, but my junior year in high school, our defense, I think we had the best defense in the state. And I had to run scout team against him every day. And if I scored a touchdown against our defense, me and the defensive coach, Mike Stovall, would jump in the end zone and do Billy White Shoes Johnson together. And
that was a great dance.
oh no,
Did you do the splits afterwards too?
no, I could not do the splits. But and I took a lot of pride in that. All I got to do on that team was hold extra points and kick and field goals and special team stuff. And once in a while, got to go in on a pass play if we were way ahead of somebody. But I feel like I helped our defense every day running against those guys, and man, I took a lot of pride in it. So Billy White Shoes Johnson taught me some moves.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you who did not make my list. It was very close on there. First person was going to be Steve Atwater. I probably have him at 4. He brought everything. He brought his pads and then some on every hit, it seemed like. I mean, we'll always remember the Christian Okoye hit, obviously, on just unbelievable but that guy he was a reckless abandon with his body. He feared absolutely nothing. Him and Ronnie Lott kind of roped in the same way. I think they both were kind of this, almost from the same cloth. I mean, just irregard for the body, but just absolutely delivering some outstanding blows. It's just unbelievable to think about.
Loved Ronnie Lott, man. What an animal. I mean,
he was
what? Cliff Harris plus another 40 pounds and a little bit faster. I mean,
yeah, a lot of people don't remember he came up as a corner. Out of USC. So, I mean, he had some athletic system too to him. I mean, it's not like he was just out there trying to keep, he wasn't Chuck Cecil. And
to be honest with you, I wonder if he wouldn't have been a better corner because of his ability to just heads. I wonder if they didn't put him at safety to protect him from himself. From running head first into a fullback the way he would have.
It might have. I mean, he was such a pleasure to watch. But I had one caveat to this, and I'm going to say for a 4 or 5 year stretch, my favorite thing to do was to watch the San Diego Chargers offense with Wes Chandler, Jefferson, Joyner, Fouts, Muncie. I mean, it was just unbelievable watching them go up and down. It was before the spread offense, before arena football. It was the Air Coryell show. And man, I'm telling you, every time that late game would come on and they would be on, I would be glued to the TV set because I wanted to be Wes Chandler. I wasn't quite near as gifted as Wes Chandler, but that was who I wanted to be. I love watching that. But yeah, those obviously Atwater was very close. Yeah, he was probably in my number 4 there. So I will let you start, Billy.
Think about that team though. Who was Winslow, Joyner.
Yeah, John Jefferson for a while before he got traded. You had Wes Chandler, you had Eric Sievers, you had Bobby Duckworth, you had
dang man, that was a fun team to watch.
Lionel James was a running back from them, came from Auburn. Chuck Muncie was probably one of the best running backs before ultimately drugs got in the way of his production. But I mean, Chuck Muncie was a bigger back that could catch the football and had speed. They were just so fun to watch, man. I can still remember that playoff game in Cincinnati where it was like 57 degrees below zero and they're trying to play in that AFC championship game. And I'm going, there's no way the Chargers are going to be able to throw the ball all over the place with this win. And they weren't able to, but heck, they still had a shot to win that game, and an interception there, and boom. But anyhow, it was great to watch them. I thought Air Coryell was kind of like Sid Gilman kind of ahead of his, ahead of his time a little bit. People laughed at him, but now we're incorporating all kinds of his, philosophies and offensive game plans even to this day. So, but anyhow, who did you have first, maybe? Or I'll let you go. Whatever order you want in your top three, you can go. You got the.
That's a yeah. Let's save our best for last.
Okay, that'll work.
Because all right, I cheated on defense basically because that there's three guys for me, and you said Ronnie Lott. I mean, he was my next one. Him and Cliff Harris, I just love, but I had to put Cliff in my kind of final three of defense just because that guy was the best spearing player I've ever seen. He would spear anybody. Probably what I just said about Ronnie was probably true about him. They probably put him at safety just because if he would have tried to spear some of the running backs, he might have never lived. But like you said earlier, great to see him finally get into the Hall of Fame.
2020 is way too long.
An undersized guy that played with the bulldog mentality he did was unbelievable. I loved Deion Sanders. To me, was so much better than everybody else at his position. I know he couldn't tackle anything like Ronnie Lott or Cliff Harris, or he didn't try to. Okay, he knew what he was good at, and how many other players could cover a whole third of the field? I mean, he was so damn good.
There's only one. It's Deion, and it's still only one. It's Deion.
the guy that also played Major League Baseball and hit 300 in the big leagues. But
probably could have made the track team in sprints. Could have made the Olympic team maybe in sprints.
Well, it's funny because he doesn't get the credit that Bo does.
Yeah.
For being and he had more power, no doubt. Bo had more power than he did. But I'm pretty sure Deion was better at his position than Bo was at his position.
If I remember football, is it the NL Championship or is the World Series he batted almost 400 for the Braves?
Yeah, he was one of those big game guys. That's why I would love to have seen him get more postseason opportunities in baseball because he just shut down the field, and that I don't know, that impressed me so much. I got to coach against him. Deion's a great dad. Let me tell you something. He's a great dad. He's out there putting up with all of the rest of us who are wanting to shake his hand and take a picture with him and do all that stuff. And I got to coach against him in some pretty interesting in football and baseball. And I'm a huge fan, more of a fan of him as a player than.
Would you have loved?
And really, as time wears on, I realize how much I just could not take my damn eyes off him.
Would you have loved to see Deion in the Twitter world as a player? I mean, he made money just off self-promotion himself. Can you imagine if he had all the dynamics that are laid out there now?
No kidding, right? I mean, well, we're about to continue to watch it as his college coaching career unfolds.
Yes.
I also the Manster. Randy White for me was really unique. I love that he used the martial arts to knock guys' hands away. I got to meet him, got to judge a Miss Fitness competition with him and Jim Dent, our old friend, and Danny Mantle, Mickey Mantle's son. And after we turned in all our stuff.
What that after party was like.
Well, we went straight into the bar after that, and we had a lot of fun. And Danny and I actually had to go meet our wives at the time, and so we finally had to leave the bar. And Randy literally ran 2 blocks to catch us.
Wow.
because he was worried that maybe we'd had too much to drink.
Wow. Nice.
And I'm like, how many people would do that to somebody you basically, he hadn't just met me. He'd been on the show I produced a year before. So I'd gotten to meet him before, but this was our first time to actually spend any time together. And he literally ran 2 blocks. Hey, you guys okay? Can I get y'all a cab? I mean, that's the class act. So so there's my 1 or 3 or 4 defensive players.
Well, then finish up Randy. Randy White used to have a restaurant here in the local DFW for a number of years. He was kind of a restaurant bar, and he was a great host. I mean, he went and sat at everybody's table when they come in and talked to them. He talked to, just he didn't talk down to us. He talked to us like we were just, his next door neighbor. I mean, it was just a really, really, really nice guy. And like I told you a little off camera, on the surface, the guy kept himself in great shape, lost a lot of weight after his football career. Not that he was an overly big guy, in the middle, then anyway, but he lost a lot of weight, looked really good. And, it was nice to, it was just nice to see that the Manster was a humble, good old guy like everybody else. Perception of Manster was not reality.
I'll tell you a moment I'd love to see. When the Cowboys drafted Russell Maryland, he had literally was in the same grocery store with Randy White, and they end up meeting in the parking lot. This is like he'd just been here 5 days, Russell Maryland, and they meet in the parking lot, and so they start talking, and next thing you know, Randy's talking to him about martial arts and how it helped him, as a defensive lineman. And so here you got these 2 beasts, right, in the grocery store parking lot, and they're whacking each other's hands and they're doing all this stuff. Well, next thing you know, 4 squad cars come pulling guns on them because they think there's a fight between 2 300-pounders in the middle of a parking lot in Frisco.
Oh, that's great. Oh, man, I would love to see the Manser again. That's one more time play. I wouldn't mind that. The old University of Maryland guy. Yes. My 3 guys, it was pretty easy for me. My top 3, and I thought it was a lot harder for me to come up with 4, 5, and 6. For me, the first one, I'll say my 3rd player will be Barry Sanders. I know he's got a documentary out called Bye Bye Barry. It's very good. I saw it. It's extremely good. I thought Barry came across really well in this one. I mean, Barry doesn't normally do a whole lot of interviews and talk and get a whole lot of insight of his life, but he does. He opens up here in something that he's not normally, something that he likes to do. But you won't find a more electrifying running back than Barry Sanders.
Who had better lateral movement than that guy? I mean, I've never seen anybody with better lateral movement.
I didn't get to see Gale Sayers really truly at his prime. I was a little too young for that. I've seen the films like everybody else, but again, as you said, to be able to stop on the dime and go laterally from one spot to the other spot, and then the burst of speed after that, it was just you never knew. He's the only guy I know that could lose 14 yards and it'd be a great yarn. It's just like and the big debate back there in their prime is, do you want Emmett? Do you want Barry? I mean, that went on for several years since they both kind of coexisted about the same amount of time. And, for him to be able to walk away from the game on his own terms, I think is really huge. That says a lot about the person. Paid back bonus money to the Detroit Lions. How many athletes will pay back bonus money? I mean,
no, I wouldn't allow any of my clients to do that.
I mean, it's unreal. Says a lot about his character. I got to see his son play a little bit in Oklahoma. I mean, talk about, man, some big shoes to fill. I mean, same name, except you're junior. I mean, it's just, but yeah, he was so much fun for me to watch. It was always a stop down. Even when he was at Oklahoma State, I'm an OU guy. I watched him. it seemed like he had eyes in the back of his head too. You couldn't see him sometimes because he's had that low center of gravity. Was the other thing. But the guy hardly ever got injured, and he's not the biggest fellow in the world. Think about that. I mean, it's a lot of carries, that were in his deal. That it's just, yeah, he was great. I mean, it was so much fun to him. One of my other idols that played for my beloved Steelers is Jack Lambert. That would be my other guy that I love to play.
Wow.
He was the angry white guy, as we used to say in my household back in the day.
He did. He reminded me like a pirate on steroids or something.
Yes. I mean, that guy had a disposition when he woke up in the morning, and I think he had a disposition when he went to bed at night. I mean, he's kind of aloof since his playing days, too. You don't see Jack Lambert interviews. You don't see him in front of the mic. He doesn't have an autobiography. There's not a documentary on that guy.
God, that team was great.
Yeah, he's a Kent State guy, and I'm talking about if you had the football, he was going to try to put you in the cemetery at all times on every play. Obviously played amongst a lot of other Hall of Famers during that time. But it was just so much fun to see the intensity that guy had. He scared me through a TV set. What he was doing on the football field. This great Hall of Fame career, and it was so much fun to watch him play. And last but not least, is going to go to me, who I think is the greatest defensive player to ever play football, and that's Lawrence Taylor. I think that Lawrence Taylor was, just a different breed. He is the one that brought the tight end chip to the game. He's the one that brought the offensive tackles to take that one step back before the snap because of him. I mean, I heard an interview with Lawrence Taylor about 2 months ago where they asked him, do you think that the drugs really affected your career? He actually thinks that there's sometimes the drugs actually helped him. So we're going to go 50-50 on that, because I don't know, because he said he'd wake up in a stupor and be mad about all the money he spent. And he said he'd go out there and take it out on the opponent, So, but I mean, I can't imagine two bigger people that are opposite but have the same kind of egos. Bill Parcells, Lawrence Taylor. Bill Parcells old school. Lawrence Taylor is all new school. And one of the best stories that I heard of Lawrence Taylor, and I think it's great, I'll take his brief. Belichick says they were having a defensive meeting on a game plan on Monday in the defensive room. Well, he's drawing up this new defense, doing all this other stuff, but Lawrence Taylor's falling asleep in the back. So Harry Carson says, hey, you need to wake up, LT. Well, Belichick hears Harry Carson's, and he acts. So he starts getting on Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor gets up from the sleep in his stupor, goes up and scratches all this stuff on the chalkboard and says, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. And Belichick looks at him and goes, that's 100% accurate. And he allows him to go back and sit down in the back. So a lot of people think that Lawrence Taylor just was great, just a better athlete than everybody else, but he knew defenses. He was actually a smart football player too. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that. I mean, anytime that Bill Belichick tells me that the greatest defensive player he's ever seen is Lawrence Taylor, that's good enough for me. So, yeah, LTB, he's number one in my list. I mean, I wish I could go back in time and hear Pat Summerall and John Madden call a game with Lawrence Taylor. But as much as they loved him, I'd love to go back in time for that. I know I can't, but those are my three. And,
I look at, first of all, I got to meet him in the locker room when my father was managing the Oakland A's. And I'm sure you won't be shocked that he came to visit Mike Norris. They were going to do something after the game. Who knows what? But
I just want to know who was holding.
Well, here's something I've always thought, and as great of a linebacker as he was, but I used to always think, what if he were just a defensive end? How many sacks would LT have had? Because without a doubt, for me, he was the best pass rusher I've ever seen.
Right.
And I mean, just I can't even think of anybody close to him as just a straight pass rusher, and he was great at every facet of his game.
Sure,
But
sure. He was so athletic, and he's actually a kind of a tweener, outside linebacker, defensive end, stand up,
sure,
put his thing in the bro. I mean, he just, I mean, he invigorated what pass rushing is in the day, and I think
absolutely.
the Reggie Whites of the world and all that came after him, they owe him, a huge deal because think about this. He's the one that put the premium on you need to pay a defensive end to rush the quarterback. Lawrence Taylor's the first one. I mean,
Absolutely.
he's the pioneer of that. And how many millions of dollars have been spent on trying to find the next LT at that position since? I mean, I can't imagine. But yeah, he was Plu treasure to watch, and he had one of the most famous plays, obviously, with Joe Theismann breaking his leg. The way he was, trying to tell the Washington Redskin trainers to hurry up and get on the field, showed a lot of class. I mean, I think he did the exact opposite of what Jack Tatum did on Darryl Stingley. The exact opposite. Fear, concern for being humane, where Tatum wasn't, with Stingley when he put him, paralyzed him. But he's just a phenomenal athlete. I can remember watching games when he was at North Carolina on Raycom, and then it became Jefferson. Oh gosh, I've gone brain dead. Jefferson, no, but anyway, I can remember watching them and when I was living in Carrollton, and everybody kept saying he was going to be the next real deal outside linebacker. Well, finally, people pegged that early, and they were actually right.
Yep.
They were right about that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yes, man. Well, hey, guys, go ahead. I'm sorry, Billy.
Well, my favorite quarterback, I told you, Tarkenton barely made my list. Watched Aikman's whole career. Got to spend some time with him off the field. And I literally got to meet him his first weekend here.
Wow.
He had just been drafted. I met him in a little bar in Greenville, and he was sitting at a table alone. I sat down. I said, "Are you who I think you are?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "No, don't worry. I get it." And he's really a decent guy. And I got to know him over those years. I was hanging around the Cowboy locker room a lot, and I can't tell you how much respect I have for that guy. What kind of guy he was, what kind of teammate he was. We're talking about a quarterback didn't have any wheels at all. It was all arm and all this. And
yes.
I loved watching him play. But my all-time favorite player, to me, he was the one-man gang, was the Tyler Rose. I'm not sure he was ever on a good team. To me, he made whatever team he went to a good team. Bum Phillips had one plan of attack: sign Earl. Okay. And then we're going to give Earl the ball 35, 40 times a game. Okay. And he ran over linebackers, just punished the defense. And, I see guys in the Hall of Fame, Franco Harris, for example, who was a big, durable back that played for the best offensive line in NFL history. That I'm pretty sure Kenny could have had several 100-yard rushing games behind that line, because go watch his highlight film. And you show me how many tackles you see Franco Harris break. He runs through these holes where nobody's even touching it.
Kind of Barry Sanders.
What would Barry Sanders have done on a team like that? I mean, it would have been insane. But Earl had to pound his way wherever he went, but yet still had that speed. And can you imagine being a quarterback trying to take him on 1-on-1? I mean, shoot his ankles.
Well, I think also Earl, wasn't he the innovator of getting rid of the tearaway jersey? Was Earl Campbell. Because he was dragging people in there, with initial kind of Isaiah Robinson. You think the Rams middle linebacker like a do-over? He's on every one of the Earl Campbell highlights, trying to tackle him. But
I remember guys getting concussions, hitting him in the thigh.
Yes, biggest thighs in the world, huge. I can remember that Monday night game against the Dolphins where that was kind of his big coming out party on the national scene, and Howard Cosell and them in the booth that night going crazy. And he goes on that long 75-yard TD, and he just drops the ball at the end zone because he's just exhausted. I mean, he's got nothing left. And Cosell's going crazy. My dad's going crazy in our house in Houston, and we're all just kind of looking around going, yeah, he's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
I produced a television show in the 90s, and he was also, chewed tobacco, and I dipped back then, and I was trying so hard to get him on my show, and I literally was calling at least bi-monthly, and finally I get a call from his secretary. Okay, Earl's going to do your show. He's going to be in town for the Davy Bryan Awards. Earl was the last running back to win that award. It used to be the best back. Now it's just the best quarterback. But he'll do your show on Sunday, but he wants you to go to the Davy O'Brien Awards with him. And I was thrilled. I got to go play pool with Earl. We beat everybody we played. And he's such a good guy, Kenny. He just treated me like he'd known me for years. And, the next night signed a Sports Illustrated cover to my Skull brother, Earl Campbell. He was as good a dude as he was a player. And that's saying a lot for me because he was my favorite player ever.
Tyler Rose for a reason. He was just, won't have many people say anything bad about him. That's another thing that tells you something. And he's, done a lot of work for the University of Texas for a number of years, so for somebody, still kind of being in a public light for that long and still nobody, finds your warts or, goes out publicly and says you're a jerk. That says a lot about the character of who he is. And he's had a lot of health issues, since then, post-football career. And, man, it hasn't stopped him, man. He's got his Earl Campbell sausages out there. He's got his restaurant in the Austin airport. I advise you all to get the Earl Campbells at the Austin airport. They're not like the ones at the grocery store, buddy. No, they're not.
I like the ones at the grocery store, too.
Man, I'm telling you, man. Maybe it was just because I had too much to drink the night before and it made it taste that much better. I'm not sure. But man, it just was so gold. But yeah, I love that. I mean, listen, I'm a Steeler fan, but I was living in Houston during that era, and it was hard not to root for Earl Campbell. I mean, I got an Earl Campbell jersey from a number of years ago, still at the house. And he's a University of Texas guy, so that's all I've got to tell you. I actually, in spite of that allegiance, I still liked him. So, but anyhow, hey guys, we do really appreciate you listening to us. I know we went a little long here today. I know we did but appreciate you hanging with us. And please check us out on our Twitter, Balls, capital B, the number 2, the THE, capital WALL, capital PC. And also hit us on all of our social medias, Rumble, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, especially YouTube. Click on that, subscribe, and like or dislike. And drop a suggestion to us, man. We greatly appreciate it. Billy, hope you have a wonderful week. This time next week, we'll know who's in the Final Four. So that will be fun. And we'll come up with another topic to come up next week, man. But I really appreciate you, like always, man. Thank you guys for listening to us, and we'll be back next week.